Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of Inside the GM Studio, podcast all about the tabletop RPG hobby. I am your host, Matt.
And I am David.
And this week, old fuckface, my enemy out there, Billy, has...
Stop calling him fuckface. Like
No,
he likes to
fuck that.
listen.
He
He's a good
started
guy.
this.
I think you, Billy. I appreciate you. I appreciate you.
And you'll see in the email here that I think he appreciates you more too. But that's all right, because Billy, you brought this on yourself. You know what? Fuck you, William. You started this. We're gonna keep going. That's fine.
Little Willie.
Thank you for writing in though and giving us content to talk about. Hate you, but that's okay. Billy has wrote in, "Hey David." He doesn't even say me at all. He just says, "Hey David, I got a question for you."
Dunk. Fuck you. Fucking dunk, bro. Just in the salutation, he dunked on you. That's a crossover right there. Go on.
So what do you do when you have a table full of role players that when you have a table full of role players that at any time could end the tension that you have done everything you can to keep going? Even though you wanted to proceed for the next 3 sessions, all of a sudden they decided to come up with a plan that will end it that night. I don't want this. I want to keep the tension going, the same tension that I've had building for the last 3 sessions alone. Do you have any practices that I could use in order to keep this tension progressing? And even if they do get close to bringing it to an end, is there any way that I can prolong it, even giving them some satisfaction after they might deal with it in the slightest? You're one of your favorite listeners, Billy. That's right, Matt. It's still Billy. I'm going to go by it for now on. I'm probably older than you. I don't know. You might be. Let me know, dude. Guess what? I'm almost 50, dude. Fucking.
You're not almost 50. You're 43.
Am I 43? Is that it?
You're the same age as I am, and our birthday's in the same month, a week apart. So I'm pretty sure.
Man, I haven't thought about it. I thought I was going on 45 this year. Never mind. Now I feel better. You know what, Billy? You might be older than me.
I've always felt older than I actually am. It's a big. That's why I say that getting older, I feel like my age finally suits my temperament, right? Because Matt's known me since I was in high school, and I've basically been a grouchy 40-year-old man since I was like 16. And people always just be like, "Why are you this way? Like you're like a kid." And I'm like, "Yeah, but fucking get off my lawn and shit." And people are like, "What the fuck?" Like this skinny goth kid with this like surly old man demeanor. But now I got like a graying beard, and shit. I got a collared shirt on today. Like, yeah, you get off my fucking lawn now. Anyway, yeah. So thanks for writing, Billy. I appreciate you. I think you're a swell dude.
I appreciate you too, William. I just think that Billy's a little, you know what? It's growing on me though. I'm starting to like you a lot more. That's okay.
Wait, is with a Y or an IE? Is it like Billie Holiday?
Billoy.
All right, that's acceptable, I guess. Plus, you don't know, dude. Like, I mean, maybe he's older than you, but maybe he's like a fucking boxer. Maybe he sees you, he's gonna fuck you up.
Damn, you're right.
Wreck you.
You know what,
He's
Billy?
like,
I'm sorry, dude. I'll
like
be better.
That episode of The Simpsons where Homer, you don't like the old time bikes, eh? That guy kicks him in the face. Anyway, yeah, I not exactly what I thought he was getting at with the email. It sounds like the crux of the problem is that the players are threatening to rob him of some tension because they are coming up with creative solutions to something that he has laid out. Mm-hmm. Is that fair?
Yeah. It seems, like you were saying there, he's built up the tension and he wants it to keep going, but it sounds like they're getting closer, or they're coming up with clever ways to thwart whatever problem they're having that is causing the tension, and he doesn't want them to get it done with this quickly.
Yeah, that's a sticky wicket. Initially, I thought you were getting at that, like you're trying to set a certain tone at the table, and your player's demeanor is not matching that tone. I have a lot of experience with that problem, but since that's not what he's talking about, I guess I'll start by saying this is probably a good problem to have. It is going to leave you kind of having to adjust things on the fly. which is not ideal. Perhaps if you have some runway and some bandwidth from between session to session, he doesn't mention how frequently he's playing, once a
Mm.
week or once a month or whatever. Um, but what you need to do is you need to kind of drill down into the heart of what's robbing the narrative of its tension, right? So is it just that you think things are going to conclude too soon? And in which case, that might not be a huge problem, because all you have to do is just think what sort of what sort of new problems arise from the conflict ending earlier than you had anticipated. That's a takes a little bit of a thought experiment, um, but it's probably worth thinking through. And then if you're set on throwing some curveballs, roadblocks, or whatever, you just need to think about things that are organic within the context of your plot that can be added complications. Typically, when you have a beat sheet of things, you have kind of, hopefully, if you know anything about writing or plot structure, you have kind of a prologue, you have kind of an inciting incident, you have the rising action, you have the culmination of a climax, and then a falling action, and then a denouement, and then you segue, maybe you do an epilogue, and then you segue into the next adventure, right?
Mm.
That's typically the way this goes. So the problem right now is that the rising action is rising too fast, hurtling toward the climax at a rate that is going to make the plot arc feel flat. And that arises because your players are curious, because they're eager, and because they have good problem solving skills. All of which are great problems to have. They're not really problems at all, but is if you've had this happen before, Matt, do you have something else in mind that is contributing to this problem, or do you think that that kind of encapsulates it? You probably have experienced this more than I have.
Fuck, man. I don't know if I have, and if I have, I cheated, and I used that good old fashioned plot armor in order for them to not, you know, actually finish off whatever it was. Like if it was a big bad or a monster, something that they could easily deal with in order to to wipe out the tension that has been building. I just cheated and I said no. I let the bad guy escape or the monster escape.
Shame on you, sir.
It
Shame
is.
on you.
I am willing to say that it is. It was a shameless move, but I was like, no. I worked hard to get this going, and I want to keep going. So I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that it does.
Let me caution you against Matt's tactic and what it
Oh,
would do to your campaign there, Billy. Um, what that will do is make the players feel like they haven't earned the relief of the tension. There will be less catharsis because they will feel like you're toying with them and you're orchestrating everything. Now, not a lot of players have scorn for that particular tactic. They kind of accept that they are just in the GM's palm and that he or she will toy with them as they see fit. However, players that are like actively working and engaged to kind of like fuck up the dramatic stakes of your plot, they will care. They will care a lot. And so the question that you need to really drill down into that I've already kind of like laid out, but I would say is if you want your world to feel organic, which most of us should strive toward dungeon crawls and adventures that feel organic. And what I mean by that is that they're reactive, they're living worlds. So, probably the best way to think about the logical implications of how you continue to draw out tension is who is the villain, the people, the bad guy, the whomever that the PCs are actively working against. And does that villain have some resources at their disposal to adjust to what the PCs are doing that is going to accelerate the climax of the adventure? And if they do, what ways logically make sense for them to kind of move and adjust, right? think about it in a very overly simplistic fashion. Like your big bad is at a certain location, and it's a hideout, and it's hidden from. I mean, that's what makes it a hideout, right? It's hidden.
Yeah.
So, but he's hidden away, and he's doing his mustache twirling evil machinations from some
Yeah.
right, some cave, some sanctuary, some castle, tower, whatever it is. And the biggest benefit to it is that the PCs don't know where it is. But then let's just say they learn where the location of the villain is, which means they don't have to go over here and they don't have to get the Bombus medallion to like open this fucking gate and then get the Master Sword to do whatever, right? They just shortcut it and they go right there. Is the villain powerful enough to understand that the PCs are hot on his or her trail? And if so, what would they do in accordance with that? So, like for instance, if they're at a hideout and they become aware that the PCs know that their hideout is here, that tips their hand. A smart villain, which most villains are probably going to be fairly smart because they're the mastermind, right? They're not just going to sit there and wait for the PCs to arrive while they, like, and let's just hope that they can get their evil plot done. They're going to adjust. And so I think this is what you need to be thinking about is how does the villain adjust to what the PCs might be doing that is expediting it? He doesn't provide much information or insight into how it is expedited. And I guess I'll ask you, Matt, what are the ways that PCs typically flatten this climax curve? Like, do you have an idea of what he might be alluding to, where they're like
So
they're speed running through something?
yeah, I think it's either inside table talk or it's just them pulling a me and being like, fuck all this other shit that's going on right now. Let's just go right to where the problem is said to be and let's deal with it now.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of doing the role playing before in the town beforehand and gathering more information that you should use. Just
Yeah.
like, yo, we were told that they were probably over here in this castle. Let's go right now. And I think that might be
Ah,
one of the big moves.
so I would say the biggest thing that you can learn from this is to put guardrails in. We have alluded to this before about how railroading's not always bad and sandboxing's not always good. But the biggest what you want to do is you want to have like an hourglass shaped plot. You want to have things that have a wide swath of options but still lead to the same choke point where the players have less choice. And in those moments, what you do is you place barriers. I already alluded to Legend of Zelda, but it's a good example. You can't go to the level 3 dungeon because in order to get into the level 3 dungeon, you need the item that you get in the level 2 dungeon. So it's just a natural safeguard. You need to be building these into your plots. If it's too sandbox, then clever players will figure out a way to cut the line. And if your plot hinges on that dramatic tension and that escalation, then you've worked against yourself. So uh, it is possible that you can retrofit your plot with that in mind. Go, okay, what are some key junctures that the PCs are speed running through something? Then, because you have the world at your disposal, you can always throw things in that the PCs don't know. Like they don't know that they need, like let's just say like a metaphorical key to get to the next leg of the plot, right? You need this metaphorical key to unlock X. It might be a bit of information, it might be an item, it might be an alliance, it might be just a whole slew of things that make sure that in order to do X, you need to have already done Y. So you might be able to retrofit some of that, make it contingent on doing certain things because frankly, as Matt noted, if you know bad guy is in room A and you have a clear path to room A, there's no reason for you to explore rooms B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I, J, K, right? Like it just don't. But But if room A is locked with a key that's in room J, and they don't know that the key is in room J, then they need to explore the rooms to find the key to get through the door. Try
Mm.
to think about this in a plot way, um, that where you can restructure or shuffle things around, moving them around in your plot to usher the players over to a certain direction. Um, that way, it doesn't feel shoehorned, like you're just robbing them of a catharsis from a well thought out plan. You just frame it like, sure, it's not that your plan's badly thought out. It's just you don't have all the information available because
Yeah.
you haven't been doing the legwork to get all the information that you need. And so as a result, now you can't cross this river because this guy won't let you cross the fucking river unless you have this badge from the king that says that you're like allowed to cross the river. And the only way you get that is by going to this kingdom and convincing this king to give you the badge. And FYI, in order to get the badge, he wants you to go on this quest to do this thing to help the people, right? And so that sort of stuff is pretty easy to kind of bake in and shuffle around. You just need to be thinking in terms of barriers instead of how you cause the PCs to spin their wheels, right? Like, how do you throw complications in their way that would seem organic to
Mm.
the world reacting to them in some way, or just leverage the fact that if they're speed running through something, it's because they probably don't, they're not being very careful about gathering information, exploring, doing role playing, and everything like that. So just make it out like your plot is more layered than they realized, and make it more layered than they realized, even if you didn't initially. And then that'll cause them to go on, running all over here and there to do
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah, it's I don't know if our session yesterday kind of counts towards this. I was trying to think if it was in our game yesterday. We, the players, we showed up to the big bad's lair, went in through the back door, ran up against the leader of the bad guys, and immediately took his ass down, as well as the captive that we were there to save was right there. We could have just picked him up and fucked off back to town, you
Hmm.
know, mission over. But David was playing an NPC that was just like, I implore you to help me clear this castle out of this evil. I will make sure that you are well compensated. But afterwards, we were like, for sure, buddy, we can do that. Uh,
It's
but
because what
elongated it.
Yeah, it's well because what I did there is recontextualized, right? Made a case for why clearing the rest of the dungeon was valuable.
Hmm.
But frankly, that that rationale was only necessary because I introduced that NPC that gave you the backdoor entrance that allowed you to kill the bad guy to begin with. Had I not put that NPC in there, you likely would have just started on the other end of the dungeon crawl.
True that.
And in which case you would have moved all the way through. And so that was me just kind of like fixing a thing. But this wasn't the culmination of the entire adventure,
No.
right? This was like basically the last plot beat of Act Two before we move into Act Three. And so even if you had just picked him up and left, I probably wouldn't have thought that it robbed the tension. I would have just made just tried to ratchet up the tension a little bit more
Hmm.
to the third act because that's where the real meat of the drama is. That's where the big bad of the adventure is. But yeah, you guys came in and it was like one guy went attacked the big bad, second guy went attacked the big bad is dead like
Yep.
immediately, and that did feel a little like okay, not so great, but those things do happen, and if you've built in enough layers of tension from start to finish, then it shouldn't be a big problem if players circumvent the interim. If his concern is that the major tension of the adventure, like the end tension, the end catharsis of killing the end bad guy and the end goal, are going to be robbed, then he should absolutely do at least some semblance of what it is that I'm suggesting.
Mm.
But I would say that just like plot twists in a story, often writers, again, I'm going to go on a writerly jag here, so hopefully that's okay. But whether it's movies, whether it's books, video games, they become really reliant on a big twist, right? A big twist. And if your whole plot hinges on one big twist, then you're probably not adding enough layers of depth to your story. You should have several small twists, and several small twists can be just as effective as a big twist. Um, and the same is true for dramatic stakes throughout, right? The
Mm.
tension is predicated on you having different layers and different goals of tension that once one is alleviated, there's still some tension or increases or reduces the tension. So if the players get by one thing fast, it doesn't rob your entire story of tension.
Mhm.
Um, but if it's accelerating to the end tension faster than you would like, then you just need to add more complications between point A and or point Z and wherever the players are at this point. Um,
So I got a question for you. I
mhm.
want to know if you think which way is better or if any of these will work at all. So like you were just talking about layering on
Mhm.
the tension, like from maybe multiple sources, uh, be it layering from the same source or layering from different sources. Do you think either one of those could work? Even if you do find a way to nip it in the bud and end the tension from, let's say, column A, which is layering it on from the same source.
Mhm.
But you find, you come up with a clever way of finding something else that's connected to it that might bring up that same tension before because you want that one to continue throughout the entire campaign. Whereas the other one that I don't think will work very well is layering on different sources of different tension, but just to keep that energy at the table. Uh, do you think either one works, or maybe just one, or neither?
Probably a combination of both is the best because when you're reliant too heavy on one source of tension for a plot, um, this problem can occur where it can get neutered, and if
Mm,
it does, then you're just putting all your eggs in one basket. But as you noted, if the tension is too disparate, it almost feels like unconnected, and it almost feels a little cheap, like you're just trying to keep the PCs on the edge of their seat for things that are really connected to the main thrust of the plot. Um, and so what I was getting at is the best solution would probably be to find things that aren't the main thread per se, the main source of tension,
mm,
but are like organically connected to it in some way that could add complications. So you have to tie that thread. If you just throw a random quest in the middle that has little to do with the overarching tension of the plot, then it can feel like you're just trying to derail the players and eat up time and stall them, and that's not good. Um, Even if it has something that has a lot of gravity to it. This village is going to die if you don't come over here and save it. It's like, right, but what does that have to do with this thing over here? Like it's just sure it's important and it's got a lot of gravity to it and there's a lot of tension to it, but you need to get the players invested in that tension. That's the key. Just giving them tension for tension's sake, especially if they're savvy players, they'll be like, this is just a fucking distraction. I see what he's trying to do. He's trying to trick us, right, into
mm,
going off course. Um, so you need to figure out a way that you can kind of like lace it into the main plot. Uh, and again, without knowing more about his plot or the tension that he's alluding to, it's just like the same strategy that you have for side quests. We talked about this a few episodes ago about the best side quests involve several PCs and they tie to the main plot, right? They're not side quests that just are like a bottle episode of a television show. Those can work okay if they're short and sweet, and they provide a little bit of character, texture, and background. But if you're gonna try to elongate or draw out some drama, it needs to still be connected to the main thread. So you need to think through, like, logically, organically, what are some complications that could arise because the PCs don't know everything, right? And or they can't anticipate everything, or the villain or villains are reacting to what it is that they're doing and actively trying to confound them because that's what clever villains do. They try to throw a loop in things once they get hip to the fact that the PCs are doing something. And so if a villain that just kind of sits and doesn't do much until the PCs come to dispatch with them is really not much of a threat. It's kind of like if you don't have a ticking clock situation, then the PCs just go like, if they just feel like the main bad is just kind of sitting there and waiting, then they're just going to kind of go, okay, we're going to coordinate. We're going to rest up as much as we can. We're going to marshal a bunch of resources. We're going to gather a bunch of gold. We're going to get, employ some NPCs to kind of come with us. We're going to get like all these great weapons and armor and shit and a fleet of horses and a fucking Pegasus. And we're going to just descend on him and firebomb his fucking cave. He's going to be dead, right? Well, yeah, but if he just sits there, sure, but he's probably not going to do that, right? So, try to layer over it a ticking clock in some way, then throw complications at the players. Like, and if the villain is reacting organically and there's things that maybe you hadn't planned for, but you can draw out a particular thread. This is great for travel. Maybe sometimes when the plot calls for it, if you're interested in getting to a certain bullet point action item, you might gloss over a 2 or 3 day travel just for sake of expediency. But you could just as easily draw it out and make there be a bunch of challenges along the way. So long as it feels like it's supposed to be a gauntlet in some way, and as long as you've foreshadowed and communicated to the players that that's likely to be the case, then you can kind of maintain that tension by causing them to fixate on a goal that vanguards the next plot point. If it's just easy to kind of go, well, there's this character that has information and they're at the other end of town, and we go over there and we talk to them and get the information. But then if you go like, okay, but now there's the villain's emissaries are aware that you're going to talk to the guy on the other end of town. They know you're here, they know you're going across town, and they're tracking you, and now there's a chase, or now there's a fight, or now there's a thing that like it's like a gauntlet to go from one end of town to the others, like the Warriors, right? Like that old cult movie. It's like they're just going from one point, but it's like it's suddenly challenging because there's all these obstacles in their way. You can draw out the tension in a way that feels organic like that by just throwing these complications in. If they feel like they're connected to the plot because you've seemed like you've thought them through, then the players won't feel like you're deliberately undermining their plan, and you'll subtextually communicate to them that the problem with their plan is precisely that they hurried, not that the plan itself is bad. If they feel like you're pulling the rug out from their plan, it'll feel cheap. But if you just kind of communicate to them like, no, you just didn't, how many times have your players like talk to an NPC and then rushed off, and then someone's like, well, what's about this thing? And then you're like, well, you didn't ask him that. Like, well, he didn't tell us. It's like, well, you just didn't ask him. Like, he didn't know that you wanted to know, so why would he tell you unsolicited?
9 out of 10 times.
Yeah,
that always happens.
Yeah, wait, where is this place? Like, wait, why is this guy doing this? Wait, what is he going to give us a reward? It's like, I don't, be more careful when you're having a role-playing encounter with somebody, I don't know what to tell you. So, yeah.
David, I wanted to ask you, because I think I don't think I've ever done this, and if I ever have, I didn't know I did it. But say we're talking about the tension of the campaign, in that the campaign is all, it all works together. Yeah. Like it's the same really arc of the campaign. Everything, clicks together. But is there a reason, or is it a good idea to cut the tension in certain spots in order to keep it, what am I trying to say here? Keep it entertaining. Keep it something that you want to actually go for. Like if it becomes too tense, then sometimes players get burnt out and they're just like, this is just too much. We don't want to fucking deal with this anymore. So is it a good idea to have breaks?
Yeah, and if Billy seems like he's a listener, so hopefully he's listened to our episode about kind of the ebb and flow of high energy scenes and low energy scenes. You're right. You don't want to just ratchet up the tension constantly, because that just like it can be exhausting unless your players are in for it. They like just grueling death trap fucking ticking clock dungeons, right?
Yeah.
And they're just like they're right there on the and given that his players seem like they're creative problem solvers, they actually might like that. Um, so part of what your PCs are doing is throwing down the gauntlet to you to see how you adjust. And they're also doing you a little bit of a service by pointing out that you probably didn't design the adventure campaign, whatever, in a way that has safeguards, right? That has barriers for them. And so they're just kind of like going around like an Maginot Line sort of situation. And you're left scrambling, and they probably want to see what you're going to do with that. And it's important what you do with it because it'll communicate some very important things to your PCs about what kind of GM you are. Are you going to take the easy shortcut and just kind of draw it out because that's what you want? The game is not about what you want, and you need to stop thinking that you want the tension to linger. But if the players are trying to shortcut it, I don't think it's because they hate that the tension is lingering. I think they just think it's a little bit more of a parry riposte kind of situation.
Well, yeah, and it's like that's the goal of the game. You know, they're just like, this is causing us tension. This is not good. We need to stop it. And if we are clever enough, we can end it today while the GM sits there and says, no, this is supposed to last for another couple months.
It's a yeah, it's they're throwing down the gauntlet. They're saying we're clever. How
Yeah.
clever are you? Like
Yeah.
let's ramp up the stakes a little bit. Let's see if you can adjust. And so how you handle this moment is going to be very important for your games going forward because if you set the stage right, you will establish a playful, challenging, and from your players. Like they'll playfully challenge you. They'll try to break your system. You know, it's what do they call that? Red team, right?
Yep.
Like
Hmm.
somebody that tries to break a fucking system. I recently learned this phrase actually. So there's some people like that. They just try to break a system, and that's part of the fun because they're not trying to be a naysayer. They're trying to see how can I explore different aspects of this that weren't considered originally, and that leaves you reacting to them more in real time. But you can't just fire from the hip. You can't just be like, you know, as my players used to say when I ran out of material, like, guys, you ground through like 3 adventures in like a month. They're like, just wing it. It's like I'm not winging it, right? There's no
Fucking hate that shit.
it's but I promise you, you've said it at least one point to me.
Oh, yes. Oh, dude. But when I started GMing a lot more, and the other one I hate is like when we are all just kind of hanging out and somebody's just like, dude, just throw together a session real quick. We'll have one tonight. I'm like, no, we're not going to do that. I don't have
Yeah,
any of my stuff with me. I don't have time to come up with anything. I don't have anything prepared. Fuck you. How hard
this
could
is
it be?
this is the beauty of someone being a GM because, like, again, I remember you have probably spoken those words to me at some point in the
Oh, without a
past.
doubt. Yeah.
And then once you became a GM, you were like, throw a session together. You think I throw a fucking session together? Like, do you have any idea how much fucking work goes into this? Like, you get mad. You
Yeah,
get
exactly.
bitter. And then you just go like, yeah, come on, let's do something. Next time we play, I'm just it's punishment. It's here on out. It's just fucking punishment. And so if your players revel in the idea of destroying what you've built, it's really a subtextual way for them to say, we want this to be more challenging than it is. And so throwing in complications, again, not ones that seem shoehorned, not ones that seem like a total aside or a distraction, ones that just say, you did not plan for this. There is more going on than you can see because this is always your purview as a GM. You can always widen the scope or the world of the adventure as you see fit. And what you need to do is you need to leverage what your superpower is, right? The player's superpower is that they have the rules on their side. If something is in the rules, you can tinker with it, but if you abuse that power, then you lose their respect and their investment. So the player's superpowers is like when something is by the book, it benefits me. No, it says right here that like I can do this when I do this, and it's like there's nothing that says that nothing excludes this, right? So unless you're making a rule, are you making an exception to this rule right now? And subtly, like, fuck, if I do this too much, it erodes my credibility and makes me seem like I'm just drunk on my own power. I don't
Yeah.
want that. And so the players go like, okay, the rules are on my side, then I can do this, right? That's their superpower. Your superpower is that you can always just say there are things that you don't know in the world.
Yeah.
There are things that the things are happening behind the scenes, beyond the scope, and as long as they're plausible, believable, not like the villain had no way. The villain's not there. He's not where you thought he was. Well, why not? We were told that he was here. We had on good authority. He just moved, but like, why would he do that? He didn't know that we were coming, did he? Like, no, he knew. He knows all and he sees all.
Yeah.
It's like that's kind of cheap, right? But like, if you just kind of allude to some other things, they have reason to believe he has spies or that he's got some sort of scrying like whatever, and he can like understand what the PCs are doing. And it's plausible, and they go like, fuck, right? Like that's a plausible complication that fits with the logic of the world, and it's just something we couldn't see because we're only viewing things through the lens of our party and what it is we're doing. Tinker with the things outside that border. If you tinker with the things inside that border, it's going to piss off your PCs. So
Yeah. Oh yeah. Use the GM superpower that I have. God damn! How did he know? How did he escape? Oh, you didn't get that information yet.
yeah, you just, I don't know, how did he? And it's like, if you can draw the player's attention to the fact that because frankly, if they're speeding through something, it means that they're missing stuff. Unless you're just totally hodgepodge with your fucking adventuring, right? Like you're hodgepodge with your GMing. I don't know you, Billy. But you seem like a thoughtful guy. You ask sharp and pointed questions, and certainly listen to this podcast. And so I assume you've internalized some of the advice that we've given over the years, plural. And so if you're doing that and you're designing thoughtful adventures, then it's probably not that you're glaringly leaving gaps in things, but your players are trying to poke at the edges and see like, like let me see if I can kind of fuck with this thing he's got going on. And you should be thankful that you have players that are engaged enough to try to break a system that you've built and take it as a challenge that they want you to kind of bring the pain. So bring the fucking pain. Most players don't want it. They're like, no, I just want to go along. I just want to play on easy mode and like have the little trail of breadcrumbs that shows me where I got to go. And that's fun too. But I would rather have players like you have than players like I've had in the past. So.
All right. Any final thoughts for Billy before we bring this to an end?
I mean, hopefully I wasn't too abstract in my advice. This is what happens when players ask general questions and they don't get into the details. But, that said, I understand why you wouldn't want to like go beat by beat of exactly what's happening, because that could be kind of long and laborious and whatever. But hopefully I've given you some tactics here at a high level that would allow you to kind of turn into concrete and actionable things in your campaign that will seem organic, will be satisfying to your players, won't break the world, and will allow you to troubleshoot keeping that tension that you want to keep.
And I will be the bigger man. I'm sorry, Billy. I know I started this war, but I'm willing to end it, saying that I'm sorry. Please put my name back in the emails. And thank you so much for listening. You seem to be our MVP right now when it comes to emails, and I don't want to ruin that. So keep it up. Good man. But for anyone else out there, speaking of emails, if you want to send us an email and give us a topic to talk about, send it to insidethegmstudio@gmail.com. Give us something to talk about. We love it. See, Billy does this shit all the time, and now we're friends again. We had a little beef for a little bit, but not anymore. Love you, Billy. You're doing great. We're back kind of on the Twitch. Today we are live, so if you ever want to come over to twitch.tv/InsideTheGM Studio and watch us normally every Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern, you can. But we'll see. It looks like David's technical problems are going to be on the up and up, so we're good with that. But for this week, for Inside the GM Studio, I've been your host, Matt.
I'm David.
Hey, good night.